Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar. I am Amy Kuth, a patient educator with the Stephen and Barbara Slaggie Family Cancer Education Center at Mayo Clinic. I will be moderating this session. This is part 6 of our 6-part webinar series on survivorship. The topic for today's webinar is putting it all together. We want people on this webinar to know that this session is being recorded, so individuals who are not able to join us for this live session can watch it later. For those who would like to view this webinar again, the recording takes about 3 days to be edited and put on the video library tab on our cancer education page on Mayo Clinic Connect. Mayo Clinic Connect is a digital platform where patients, family members, and caregivers can connect, get evidence-based information, and get access to information about classes and webinars that our center offers. We encourage you to follow our cancer education blog on Mayo Clinic Connect so that you can stay up to date on education opportunities. And I will put a link to our cancer education blog in the chat. We will take questions at the end of the session today. If you have questions related to this webinar topic, please go ahead and type them into the chat function at the bottom of the Zoom screen. I will now hand it over to Angie Murad, another patient educator at our center, who will be giving the presentation today.
Thank you, Amy. So here we are, our last survivorship series webinar. All right, so just to let everyone know, kind of give this disclaimer that this information in this webinar is not intended or implied to be a substitute for personal medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. And always make sure that you work with your physician or qualified healthcare provider when adjusting any medication, supplements, or making any major lifestyle changes. So we've always kind of defined what it means to be a survivor. And the American Cancer Society uses the term cancer survivor to refer to anyone who has ever been diagnosed with cancer, no matter where they are within the course of their disease, from diagnosis to after treatment. And really this webinar is really for anyone. It doesn't necessarily have to be a cancer survivor. So just want it to let you know that if you think this information would be useful to anyone, we welcome you to share the information. As Amy said, we'll be putting it on our cancer education blog on Mayo Clinic Connect. So first of all, I want to thank everyone who has joined us live or viewed recordings of our survivorship webinar series. Each one of the webinars had content to address different topics, whether that was your emotional well-being or stress that you might be experiencing, or ways to improve lifestyle habits, whether that was nutrition, exercise, or thinking about ways to address some lingering side effects like cancer-related fatigue. And during each one of these webinars, our goal was to provide you with information as well as some tips to put some of the information into action to make sustainable changes. So now what? After watching all of the webinars, we want to acknowledge, first of all, that making a change can be hard. It can feel overwhelming and you're not sure sometimes where to start, especially if you've received the news that you need to make a change due to a particular medical condition. So with that being said, our learning objectives for today for putting it all together is to learn how to set obtainable goals, identify a different mindset in order to achieve goals. I'm going to be describing 4 strategies to successfully make a desired change. And at the very end, it's going to seem like possibly a lot of information, but we will have examples on how you can set your own goals and form sustainable habits. So with goal setting, and in order to achieve our goals, it's important to know how to set them in order to set ourselves up for success. So how can we do that? So how can we be effective? We recommend that when you're starting setting goals, it's good to use the acronym SMART. And each one of the letters of SMART represents ways that you can set an effective goal. So the S stands for specific. So what are you going to do specifically when it comes to your goal? With the M for measurable, how will you know if your goal has been successful? The A is for achievable. Do you feel confident that you can do this? And it's often good to use a scale of 0 to 10 to rate how confident you are that you'll be able to meet the goal. If your goal is often ranked at a 7 or below 7, you should adjust your goal to bring your confidence to at least a 7 or higher. And this is important to just feel like you really can achieve that goal. The R is for relevant. So is this goal important to you personally? That's really important because it can always tie back to whether it's important to you. And the T is specifically represents, is the goal timely or time limited? What can you do, for example, in a week's time period? And each goal should be in a short enough time span so that you can get a sense of accomplishment for the work that you've put in. So let's use this SMART acronym to give an example of what might be an effective goal to set. So for example, SMART. If a goal that might be specific is, often people just say they want to do some sort of exercise. But again, getting at that specificity, what do you want your goal to be? So for example, this person wants to go walking. How can we measure if we're achieving this goal? This person wants to walk twice a week, specifically on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And you can even make it more specific that this person wants to walk at lunchtime on Tuesdays and Thursdays. The A for achievable. When thinking about whether this is achievable for the person, they haven't been walking really at all, have not felt well with treatment. And so they think that what is a 7, they can rank this goal of 15-minute walking 15 minutes. They think that this is achievable. So they say that they can do it, have confidence that they rank it at a 7 or higher. They said that they could do it. They ranked it as an 8, that they could achieve this goal. So it is achievable for them. Relevant, why is it relevant to this person? They want to reduce their fatigue. And they learned in these webinar series that one way to reduce cancer-related fatigue is to make sure they get physical activity. And then in what time period do I want to set this goal? I want it to be for 1 month so they can really see if they're able to achieve that goal. So this is just an example of one way to how to use this SMART goal and an example. So you may be wondering why this slide has a woman working in a lab. The reason is that goal setting and making a change requires an experimental mindset. This may be a shift in the mindset that you've usually taken with goal setting. And so it really is important to treat it like an experiment. If you think about when you were in your chemistry lab in high school or in college, and you were in the lab trying to achieve whatever that experiment might be. Even if the experiment didn't go quite the way you wanted it to, you still learned something, right? You learned that was probably not the way to go about it, but you still learned that maybe you could tweak it and change it a little bit or do the experiment another way to achieve that specific goal. And this is really important because often people think of achieving goals as a potential, either a success or a failure, instead of thinking of them as an experiment. You still learn something, even if you didn't achieve that goal or things didn't go quite the way that they were supposed to in that chemistry lab. But perhaps you learned what to do or what not to do to get the results you want. And it's important to be flexible, be curious, because again, like even asking yourself, why didn't this go the way I thought it might be? And also being compassionate with yourself. Like I said in the beginning, that change can be hard. So it's okay for it to not go the way you expected, just maybe approach it a little bit differently. So take time to think about how the change fits with what's truly important to you too. That's also important. And it might be helpful to write down what you are thinking of changing, and why you want to make that change, to get at a deeper level and get in touch with creating perhaps a new identity. It doesn't mean that you have to be a different person, but just on perhaps how you want to grow and change and make sustainable changes. And if you think about it, our identity stems from our habits. If a behavior is not in line with who we want to be, it will really not last. And finally, too, it requires patience. We often want to see change happen overnight, but it really takes time. So requiring, taking the patience to really reap the benefits can be difficult, but these changes add up over time to make healthy habits. And it can be hard too, because especially in our society where we're often promised instant results, we want to see that. So just, again, taking patience with it. And really wanting to emphasize that small changes, we really do see a big impact. We often think that success of a goal requires some massive amount of action, but goals that we achieve over time make our habits and which multiply in their impact with repetition. We don't see a huge difference in a single day, but over months and over those years, it really adds up and is huge. And if we think of even the opposite, the same is true for bad habits. Bad habits can be disguised. So if we eat unhealthy today, it doesn't make a big difference, or working late and not getting enough sleep, but really it can cause our health impacts over time. So one important step in making a change is to break it down into small steps or to look at the process. We have to use a hockey picture since we're in Minnesota. So I really want to talk about this whole thing about change process, looking at the process. You know, even if you want to win a game or win a hockey game, every team wants to win, right? So it's not that the goal isn't the same, but it's really looking at the process of what are we going to do? What kind of things do we need to practice? What kind of things do we need to do in the strength training room to make our team and build success so that we can see that winning on the ice. So it's really important when we focus on the process that we can become our own research project to develop an effective personal change process or plan. Don't get me wrong, it is important to have goals, but again, it requires to look at the whole process. We can really get deep down in what kinds of changes we need to do. And that requires awareness. And again, that experimental mindset of that trial and error so that you study yourself and see what's going to work or not work in order to reach your goal. And people who successfully implement long-term change use a process of this experimentation or trial and error. And when we kind of also look at the awareness of maybe why I did or did not achieve that goal, kind of seeing what did I do differently? What, if I did achieve that goal, what did I do differently in order to achieve that goal? Can I apply those same principles to other things that I want to change to build on that success? And then also, what did you learn during the process? That I had mentioned is really important. And maybe are there things that motivated you that you didn't know in the past? Maybe there's certain exercises that you do like or didn't like. If you didn't get the exercise in, was it maybe the wrong time of day? Or are there perhaps better times of day to do that exercise? And often too, people make a goal of losing a specific amount of weight. And even if you don't see that specific amount of weight come off, are there other indicators of success? Are you in a better mood? Do you have more energy? So that's just one example. So if we take this person who did that, set that goal of going walking twice a week for 15 minutes at lunch for an entire month, she realized that she had more energy in the afternoon and evening. So often in the afternoon, she just was dragging at work and not able to even do things after work at home. And while walking outside, obviously they don't live in Minnesota in the wintertime, but they realized that they enjoyed nature and movement. So that was something new that they learned about themselves. And 2, they can go up 2 flights of stairs without having to stop. So they kind of live on a tri-level type house. So in order to do laundry on the basement level, they had to go up 2 flights of stairs in order to put the folded clothes in the bedroom. And just realizing that she had the energy to do that without stopping is really beneficial, in seeing that she's achieving that goal. So the next couple of slides are going to have a lot of information in them, and they're going to talk about, the first part is going to talk about 4 scientific strategies to help develop this change process. Like I said, this kind of goes over like the meat of the presentation, but just wanting you to know that it is going to be a lot of information, but I will give examples at the end. It's not going to seem like a lot of information. It's pretty intuitive once I give examples to it. Okay, so the 4 scientific strategies, and what I do want to also point out is that this is from a book, The Change Anything, The New Science of Personal Success. So if you're looking to make changes, this would be a great resource that I do have listed on my resources at the end. So with this change process, the first of the 4 scientific strategies are identifying crucial moments. So there are a few situations where you may realize that you're most vulnerable and you feel at risk of falling back into your old bad habits and behaviors. And to identify these crucial moments, it's important to create your greatest temptations and determine whether they occur at certain times, places, or around certain people, or when certain physical or emotional triggers occur. So it's really good to look into this. And as an example, like maybe you notice that when you go out with certain friends that you maybe drink more alcoholic beverages than you would like. You don't sleep well, you just don't feel well the next day, and this is something that you'd like to change. Another example of a crucial moment might be after a stressful day at work. You realize that you tend to snack on chips before dinner and you just don't eat a good dinner, and you'd like to stop that. So these would be some crucial moments that you have identified where you fall into that temptation. So the second scientific strategy would be to create vital behaviors. And these are rules that you define for yourself in order to follow when these crucial moments occur. And you know that you're most vulnerable. So when you establish rules before you face this challenge, you're more likely to change your behavior when this temptation arises. So the crucial moment indicates when you're at risk, whereas this vital behaviors indicate what should be done in that particular moment. So for example, if I go out with those particular friends, you can develop a certain vital behavior where you would say, if I go out with these friends, I'm going to order only 1 alcoholic beverage, and then I will switch to either a beverage like a mocktail that doesn't have alcohol in it, or I'll switch to water. And maybe even having something that you're automatically going to say to kind of help keep you on the straight and narrow and stick with your goal. Now, another thing for the other example that I gave is by snacking on chips when you have a stressful day. So a few other vital behaviors that you could do would be, maybe you're going to go for a short walk, or maybe you're going to journal about your day to help kind of lift it off your mind. Or you could do even a 10 or 15-minute yoga video on YouTube to just kind of help with that transition from a stressful day into your evening and having a more relaxing evening, and just let all the worries go. So those are just a few things that you could do, some vital behaviors to kind of when you encounter those crucial moments. Then the third scientific strategy was to turn bad days into good data. So it's inevitable, right? We're going to give in to temptations and some of those crucial moments. However, a differentiating factor that can set you apart from the rest is how you respond to these situations. When you fall victim to moments of these temptations, you're likely to often people follow a certain pattern of bad habits. However, when you respond to the bad habits with curiosity, you become able to take a step back, learn from what happened, and modify your plan. Maybe you need to create different vital behaviors. So that's just an example to kind of help you turning those bad days into good data. And the last of these 4 strategies is engaging all 6 sources of influencers, which I'll talk about in the next couple slides. So these are just important to kind of go through each of these sources of influence, also within that change process. So these 6 fundamental influencers to change are hidden forces that act against you with making a change. Often we think it's due to a lack of willpower, but it really is much more than that. And I'll talk through each one of those 6 influencers. They can affect our daily decisions. And often too, throughout the day, it becomes harder and harder to make those good decisions. We get tired throughout the day. So it's good if you can walk through those situations to help you keep, like I said, kind of on the straight and narrow and keep heading towards that goal. Once you see these influencers, you stand a better chance at changing them and achieving your goals to establish good habits or habits that you want to achieve. So this slide, like I said, is kind of a lot of information, but we will walk through some examples in a minute. So these are the 6 fundamental influencers to change. There's 3 main categories: personal, social, and structural or environmental influencers. And within each one of those, there's motivation and ability. And I'll kind of walk through each of those. So with personal influencers, there's that first one on the left, personal motivation. And this really gets at whether you want to do it, or understanding why you want to achieve something can really interrupt those triggers and urges by connecting your personal goals during these crucial moments. Clearly defining this beforehand can help you transform and redirect those impulses and subconscious thoughts into choices that start bringing you pleasure and achieving your goal. So some ways to understand and define your why, or why you want to achieve your goal. Some things that you can do to get at this are to create a personal motivation statement. This can be crucial when you're feeling like you could write down what the motivation is to achieve this goal. You can even keep it up on your wall to remind you when you do experience hard times, or you feel like you might be kind of stuck. It can help remind you what you're trying to achieve. Another thing that you could do is to visit what they call a default future, which just means like whether that's someone you look up to or someplace you want to get to that's close to where you want to be, to kind of look at that. And that could be something that could be helpful and remind you of the goal that you want to achieve. And sometimes even making it a game. If you make achieving your goals fun. So make time be your friend and set little benchmarks along the way, and can help motivate you. And you might realize that you enjoy that chasing after that goal. So that might be something that you discover. And just getting at that personal motivation statement, you could even have like a note card which just has words on it, that why you want to make that change. And you can even keep that with you. So if you feel temptation happening, you can look at that and reflect on that to kind of remind you and to keep heading towards that goal. Then number 2 is that personal ability. So what that refers to is whether you can do the change. To change anything, you need a set of skills to manifest that change. And these skills are rarely taught in school, and they're necessary in order to make change. Just by gaining knowledge in areas that we struggle can help us achieve the goals. So one example that I had thought of when I was reading more about this topic was a person that I had seen about wanting to achieve a goal of walking in the winter. But this person had never lived in a winter climate. So for them, some skills or things they needed to learn was, in order to keep walking outside in the wintertime, was what kinds of winter gear did they need? What kinds of boots did they need in order to be safe and not slip? If it becomes too icy, they may need to walk indoors, and what would be some places that they could go to within the community, because again, they were new to this area, that they could walk, like at the mall or different gyms if they belong to a gym. So just different things like that. So knowledge that you might need in order to achieve your goal. Then under those social influences, number 3 is social motivation. And this is whether other individuals encourage you to do your goal, to achieve your goal or work towards it. And there is a clear social component to bad habits that most people overlook. When friends encourage bad behavior, this becomes very difficult to resist. And finding a way to have peer pressure work for you and not against you is how social interactions can help you achieve your goals. So when you can clearly see differences between a friend and an accomplice, it's really important. So it may be possible to transform these accomplices, or people who are kind of preventing you possibly from achieving the goal, into friends who could encourage that good behavior. But you might need to hold a transformation conversation. And this is just a crucial conversation with people that you want to share with what your goal is in order to achieve building lasting healthy habits. And you'd like to take them along the way on that journey and help nudge you and keep you on the straight and narrow path whenever you get derailed. So sometimes that can be hard, but it might surprise you that people are maybe wanting to achieve the same goal. And so they can actually be a friend rather than an accomplice. Sometimes it might be needed where you distance yourself from those who are unwilling to help you. Considering trying to distance yourself from people in life who are not as supportive, it make it difficult to live the new way that you want to live. Sometimes it might be that you don't have to totally eliminate them, but just maybe see them less often or engage in different activities if you find that it's difficult in certain situations. Then you might discover that you could add new friends. Perhaps you could engage in new activities and meet new people and continue to achieve that healthy goal. And then it's also important to redefine what is normal. Pay close attention to what is perceived as normal in your life according to your accomplices. This normal could be very dangerous or prevent you from achieving your goals. So you may need to stop and measure yourself against the unhealthy norms of some people that maybe you're keeping company with. Then number 4 is that social ability, whether others provide help and information or resources. So this just refers to considering a social support group. It could be a mentor, a wellness coach, or other people who help you, and people are more often successful at achieving their behaviors if they have someone like this in their life. So next we're on with these structural or environmental influencers. So number 5 is that structural motivation or environmental motivation. And this is whether the environment encourages you to achieve that goal. When you connect your short-term goals with the rewards, you stand a better chance of adopting a new desirable behavior. You can reward yourself for a job well done by making short-term goals and set a prize. It's important to not do this all the time. So for example, if you, with this example of the walking goal, maybe after 2 weeks of achieving that goal, maybe you want to get a new pair of walking shoes. So that could be your short-term goal or your prize. It could get expensive over time. So maybe you want to also include personal and social motivators as well too. Then lastly, that structural ability. is going to be the last influencer. And this is whether the environment supports you to do it. This is really crazy to realize that minor environmental changes can really have a significant impact on your overall choices that you make. You can experience faster behavior changes when you include visual cues to kind of help you and nudge you into the direction you want to go. And how you organize and construct your physical space has a major impact on whether they're good or bad habits that you have over in your lifetime. That's why it's important to outfit your home and overall environment in ways that prevent you from falling prey to those bad habits. And you can experience faster behavioral changes when you add visual cues to help you focus on your goals. So some ways to set you up for success would be to manage distance. Really, proximity matters. So for example, if there's the candy jar at work, if you walk past that candy jar to go to the bathroom, it could be really good to try to maybe find a different way to just kind of keep that visual cue out of sight, prevent you from taking that. And then if you want to change your cues, hang posters or pictures or things that prime you to really achieve the goal. And then using tools for our everyday lives can help us keep patterns that are more favorable. So for example, that goal of going walking when it's lunchtime, so oftentimes we can get in the habit of just working on something at work and just keep working through lunch. But if we use for example, our phone or an alarm on our phone to help remind us that, you know what, now is my time and I need to go for my walk, that's really helpful. So use those tools to help keep us on task. So building lasting change, we need to look at all of these 6 fundamental influencers. It seems like a lot, but again, I'll kind of walk you through it. And oftentimes we find that a gap in knowledge and skills is often what is lacking and prevents us from achieving a goal and making a change. So it's really important that just looking at what skills do we need in order to achieve the goal and getting the information that we need. Who do we need to tap on to maybe get some of those skills? And then also looking at and talking through ahead of time some of those, what are my crucial moments and what am I going to do in those situations? Do I need to have a phrase or something to say to people or something that I'm going to do in that situation so I behave in a certain way so I can achieve my goal? And the challenge is knowing how to put all of this into practice because it really helps us make long-term changes. And again, it takes persistence and perseverance to achieve our goals. So how are we going to put this all into action? Let's take a look. So with this first goal of activity, of getting some activity, of going walking at lunch twice a week for 15 minutes for 1 month, let's look at the first of those influencers. So the personal influencers. So for motivation, again, remembering that this is whether you want to do it. What kinds of things can help me achieve getting that walking in at lunchtime? The reason I want to do it is the activity helps me be healthy. It gives me more energy and I enjoy being outside. So these are the things that are influencing me to want to do it. What about my ability, whether I can do it? So I have the physical stamina to do this, and I know good walking routes in my neighborhood. So that's important because that will help me keep me safe and know where I'm going. And it is something that's not going to be too tedious or too long, that I can do this 15 minutes to start out with. And then even if I talk about too walking in the winter, so even you can kind of take that into this with ability. What do I need to have on hand to be successful to walk in winter to make this doable? Do I need certain gloves? Do I need a new coat just to keep me safe, or boots, or what we call yak tracks to kind of keep you from slipping? or even, like I said, going to different places to walk indoors if it's too bad outside. Now, with those social influencers, with the social motivation, again, this is whether others encourage you to do it. So my oncologist encourages me to be active. My dog likes to go for a walk with me, so that's also going to encourage me to do it. And then my friends in the neighborhood count on me to go for a walk on some days too. So on those Tuesdays and Thursdays. And perhaps I can even add new friends. Are there people in the neighborhood who I could meet along the way? And even if I decide I want to walk more days of the week, could they maybe be someone I walk with? And what about that social ability, whether others provide help, information, or resources? So my husband often goes with me on my walks, and I sometimes meet my neighbors for a walk. So those are two examples of the social ability. Then when we talk about structural influencers, with structural motivation, this is whether the environment encourages me to do it. So I can wear my new tennis shoes. I often get the mail on my way in for my walk, so that encourages me to do it because that's one less thing I'll have to do. I take my dog out with me too, because if I don't, she will have an accident in the house. So it's important to make sure I get that walk in with my dog. What about structural ability? And this is whether the environment supports me to do it. Or those visual cues. So I keep my tennis shoes by the front door. That's going to be that visual cue. My dog waits at the door around lunchtime. So again, kind of even sometimes making noise or begging. I keep the leash hung on the hook in the mudroom, so near my tennis shoes. And then like I said before, do I use tools like an alarm on my phone to prompt me to go upstairs and go for that walk? Here's another example, which is another example of a goal I want is to eat more vegetables. So to be more, use that SMART acronym. So I want to include a vegetable at lunch 3 times a week for a month. So that's my next goal of an example I'm going to give. When we apply the influencers, we look at the personal ones. So what is my personal motivation, whether I want to do it? I know that eating more vegetables is good for my health. They have all those antioxidants, fiber we learned about in that other webinar, in the webinar series. It keeps me regular. It will help me maintain a healthy weight too. With personal ability, and this is whether I can do it, I have to make sure I put vegetables on the grocery list to keep vegetables on hand. I'll try to, whenever I can, to buy pre-cut vegetables so that they're easy to include in my lunch. And I'll try maybe a new vegetable, maybe once or a week or once every couple of weeks, just because I don't like a whole lot of vegetables. So this may help me branch out to include more vegetables. That's social influencers. So what is my social motivation? Again, what other people encourage me to do it? So my oncologist and dietitian encourages me to eat healthy and include more vegetables. My husband likes vegetables, so he's going to want to include them, and I often eat lunch with him on most days of the week. And then that social ability, whether others can provide help, information, or resources. So my husband prepares vegetables in unique ways at dinner time, and we often have leftovers at lunch, not all the time, but that can encourage me to automatically get a vegetable at lunch. And my husband helps me do the grocery shopping, so he can kind of help me get some vegetables, and he knows often what's in season, and he's teaching me to cook dinners. So that's one thing that I didn't do before. So that's also going to help me include more vegetables at lunchtime, because if I have leftovers and I prepare dinners, those will be things for me that I can include at lunchtime. Then with the structural influencers, again, whether that environment encourages me to do it. So my husband cuts up any vegetables with me when we get home from the grocery store, and we keep them in containers. My husband reminds me to include a vegetable with lunch when we get back from walking as we prepare our lunch. And then with the ability, whether the environment supports me. Like I said, I keep those, they're in a container, but I keep the containers in the front and center in the refrigerator if I don't necessarily have leftovers. If I don't have vegetables on hand, I keep like fresh vegetables. Then I have frozen vegetables that can quickly be steamed either on the stove or in the microwave, so I can include those. So these are just a few examples of ways that you can use those influencers and kind of walk through the goals so that you can achieve goals. So just in summary, it can feel overwhelming and not sure where to start. If you, like I said, had received the news that you need to make a change, or if you want to achieve change and maybe you haven't been successful in the past. So it's really good to focus on what goals you want to work on, and really encouraging to work at, if you haven't had a whole lot of success in the past, maybe just working on one specific goal. Like I said, when you work on one and achieve the goal, it really helps you gain confidence to achieve other goals. And then secondly, approach it with that experimental mindset. Even if it doesn't go the way you expect, you'll learn something in the end. And approach it with curiosity. What do I need to change to be successful? If you achieve that success, why was it successful this time and not other times? What was different? Did I exercise early in the morning and that really helped me be successful? Then maybe that might be something to approach if you want to try other exercise, to do it first thing in the morning, just as an example. Then focus on those 4 scientific strategies to create an effective change process. Again, it's more the process. The goal is important, but also looking at the process. And then working through your fundamental influencers to make sustainable changes. It seems like a lot of information when you go through it, but when you work through each one of those, it really helps you be successful. And oftentimes it's just the knowledge or the skills that you need in order to achieve the goal. So as I always say with all the webinars, is to be gentle with yourself, because we want to realize and always stress that making a change can be hard. But really, we're all works in progress. So it's okay to have some failures along the way. And I think it's just really good to approach it with what you can learn in that whole process. So one thing I just wanted to point out is that we have some of our resources, Mayo Clinic Connect. Amy put that in the chat. This is that book, That Change Anything, The New Science of Personal Success. That's the book I had mentioned that I got information on. So that's in there. And then here are a couple other books about making changes. Atomic Habits by James Clear, and then The Power of Habit. Why do we do what we do in life and business? So that's another resource available to you if you want to check those out. So at this time, I'll turn it over to Amy to see if we have any questions, and we will answer those for you.
All right. Well, thank you, Angie. That was a wonderful presentation and with lots of really great information. So let me take a peek in our Q&A here. Okay. So the first question is, you talk about making a change to your identity. Can you talk more about that?
Sorry, I was on mute. So glad I caught that before I kept talking. So to speak to that is really just to make sure that your behaviors and your goals align with truly what you value in life. So it doesn't mean that you have to become a different person necessarily. It's just that it really helps to align your behaviors and your goals. So for example, like if you're someone who wants to be healthy and have more energy, continuing to smoke is really not going to fit into that quote unquote identity. And I would say that this is not an easy task. So this isn't something that a lot of people can do on their own. Some people can, but not everyone. So it's really important to also make sure that you have people on your side that have the expertise to help you achieve this kind of goal. So finding a support system like friends, family who support you, maybe like for example, at Mayo, they have the Nicotine Dependence Center to provide evidence-based information by doctors and then tobacco treatment specialists. So it's important to really talk to your primary care provider to find smoking cessation resources, whether that's within your healthcare community or within the community itself. So it's just kind of getting at making sure that your behaviors and your identity all align with the goals that you want to achieve.
All right, well said. Looks like we have a couple more questions here. So the next question, I am often told I am not motivated or non-compliant by my physician, and that's why I never achieve my goals. How can I make a change if I'm not motivated?
Yeah, I would say with that, really that's just one of those influencers, right? That personal motivation. So it really is you can't make a change only with that personal motivation or that willpower alone. So it's really good to look at those other influencers to really get at the change. And so that's just one thing to look at. And that's why we really stress to talk about or to look at each of those 6 influencers to really see if there's other things that can help you achieve the goals that you want to achieve and to make them into sustainable habits.
Okay, thank you. And we got one more question here. What if my accomplices are my family? What do I do? My husband and kids want to order out often and get pizza every week.
Yeah, this is difficult. This is a hard one because it can really be tricky. And I think the most important message that I would say is it might need to have a crucial conversation, right? Communication is so important. They may not know that this is a goal. I mean, you know to yourself that is a goal that you have, but I think, and obviously the conversation would depend on what level you talk about it with your kids, depending on their age. But I think it's really important if you have younger kids to make sure it's clear to talk about your goals with your husband and make that clear. If you have older kids, it's really important to just have that conversation with them. So just make sure that they know what's important to you and what's helpful or what isn't helpful in terms of the support, and look at ways on how they could support you. I mean, could this be that maybe you need help with some of the preparation to cook at home, including them in on what kinds of meals they want, and setting rules, perhaps that there needs to be a vegetable included or a fruit included, something that they like, so at least they get a choice in it. But they include a fruit or a vegetable or both at that meal time. And it's okay to eat out occasionally, but maybe you could make it so there's like one special day of the week that maybe you eat out, just so it's less often. And then it makes it even more special or more like a treat when you're dining out, and it achieves everyone's goals. And then too, just also, it is about healthy eating choices, but it's also about activity. So are there things that you can do together to not only eat healthy together, but be active? Because that's also part of establishing healthy habits. And I give kudos to you to want to make this change with healthy eating, because with a family, it can be tricky and hard. But I think communication is going to be your friend, and talking about it just so everyone's on the same page.
Awesome. That's some really good advice. I like the idea of getting the family involved and giving them a choice in the process as well, so they have that buy-in.
Oh, good. Yeah. Well, good. Any other questions?
It does not look like we have any other questions. So with that, we will go ahead and close out the session. So I'd like to say thank you to everyone for participating. And you can click on the link that we shared in the chat to learn about upcoming sessions and webinars that we're offering, and to view this recording once it is posted in our video library. When this webinar has ended, you will be prompted to take a quick survey. We appreciate your willingness to fill out this survey, as your feedback is really helpful to ensure that we're offering educational opportunities that are of value to you. So thank you and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.